The early part of my life was very shaped by, I think, what a lot of people experience. And this is sort of, to tie it back to what we were discussing, is my story is my individual experience of this massive awakening. And it started out as me externalizing who I was. It's the wildest thing. It's absolutely the initiation of initiations. And I'm sure as I get, deeper into it, I'll be able to speak even more. I'm really just a reflection, right? That helps. I'm this sort of sounding board and this mirror that people can then see themselves better in, I like to think. I believe that there are particular people that are here to guide people out of what we see in this lifetime as like a bad habit or an addiction or something that is causing you to keep coming back to this same problem in your life. Mindset is first. Setting is the environment, and you want the environment to be a place that is safe and you feel safe.
Hey family, this is the TheThrivewell Journey. Look, life's too short to just get by, and 2025 is the year to persist. We're here to grow, build, and thrive. This podcast is all about powerful stories, real talk, and practical steps to help you level up in every area of your life. Now, if that sounds like something you need, don't just watch, be a part of the journey. Let us know you're here. Do us a favor. If you're listening on the podcast platform, download the episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. And as we always say, let's make thriving our new norm.
Yeah. Beat up, bullied, and dunked on. Beat up, bullied, and dunked on. Bullied and dunked on. Yeah. Let's get it.
After 2 combat tours as Marine Corps officer, Susannah had a spiritual awakening that changed her life. Now she guides others through transformation as an energy priestess. As the co-founder of House of Embodied Metamorphosis, she is also author of Entheogens, a research study on psychedelics and change, and is dedicated to fostering peace and connectedness worldwide. And we just had a kind of small conversation earlier, and I just want to say thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I am, like the energy is fiery today. I got it, like people coming at me from all the different directions. So like there's part of me that's like, oh no. And then there's a part of me that like goes right back into that kind of warrior energy,
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm feeling energized.
I love it. And I just wanted to announce while we're on here, you are a mom of a new baby.
I am. I co-created life into this world, and that to me is like it's the wildest thing. It's absolutely the initiation of initiations, and I'm sure as I get deeper into it, I'll be able to speak even more to it. Right now, I'm just 2.5 months in, but the process of bringing forth life is something that really should be talked about in a new way, I think, in our world. Yeah. And honoring mothers.
It's a beautiful thing. And yeah, mothers are to be honored. Like not just one day in, was it May, but all the time. Trust me. I believe it. In the intro, I talked about your as a role as an energy priestess. What is an energy priestess? And do you like guide people to connect with their inner selves?
Very much. I mean, I'm really just a reflection, right? That helps. I'm this sort of sounding board and this mirror that people can then see themselves better in, I like to think.
Yeah.
But the frequency and the calling of priestess, the archetype of priestess, I did a lot of research as I was kind of coming, that word kind of came into my reality as I was awakening. And I was like, can I really call myself a priestess? I don't have like a proper lineage, or I'm not part of a church, Well, I mean, I am now, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I created one for myself, but the priestess archetype is really a particular calling, and I would say like encoded in our DNA, that says that I am here to help people out of karmic loops. That's what priestesses do.
Karmic
We help,
loops.
help people out of karmic loops. So essentially a karmic loop is depending upon your belief, if you believe in reincarnation or if you believe in multiple lives, we believe that, I believe that there are particular people that are here to guide people out of what we see in this lifetime as like a bad habit or an addiction or something that is causing you to keep coming back to this same problem in your life. And by working through that problem, which, Carl Jung kind of calls the shadow, there's all sorts of ways to describe this. But the Catholic Church can call it demons. It's all sorts of different.
There's many names.
Right, many names. But it's this process of hitting against this same issue that comes up over and over and over again in different ways and different flavors in your life. And you're like, how do I just get out of this? And what happens is when you focus directly on that, then you quite literally have a transmutation of that energy into whatever your power is. So by working on that problem, you then step into what I would call dharma, your purpose.
Your purpose.
And
okay.
So that's what priestesses are here to do. And I call myself an energy priestess because my particular chosen method of working is primarily through energy and the energy field of someone.
Is that similar to a pattern? Like people live a certain pattern or just and they keep repeating that over and over again?
I mean, we all have it, right? These patterns you're exactly right. It is like a pattern that is typically destructive in some way. It's causing destruction in your life. It's causing relationships to fail. It could be just being avoidant, right? Like the avoidant tendency or the anxious attachment in a relationship. It could be a substance. It could be sex, right? We see all these different patterns that people have that keep looping on themselves, and you keep finding yourself. And I mean, I'm sure that there are listeners out there like, hey, have you ever gotten into kind of the same relationship multiple times over and over again with different people?
Yes.
Hey, that I would call a karmic loop. And it's likely in my world and in our belief system, I believe that you did that in other lifetimes as well. And you will keep working on that. And you'll keep going through that loop because I believe in the spiral of spiritual progression, which basically suggests that you start down here and everything is a spiral, and you're ascending and expanding at the same time, but you'll come back around and you'll loop back on something that you learned before. But if you don't ascend, then you continue to stay in that same loop. And it's literally a merry-go-round until you break that pattern, and then you get to ascend, and then you go to the next level of it. And you end up in similar patterns, but from a higher level of consciousness. So you can look back and go, oh, I'm not going to make that mistake anymore. I'm complete with that. And that's really what the priestess energy is about.
And you pull them out of that pattern. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I clarify that I'm not pulling anybody out of anything.
Okay.
They are pulling themselves out.
Okay.
That you are the one that encourages your own self to have that expansion. But I am the one that holds the space for it and helps to create the safety within which you can do it.
I'm looking at the world. I know I'm about to go big. I know it's kind of crazy, right?
Go big.
So
I'm in.
Let's dive in.
Yeah.
Do you think that, let's see, how do I say this? Like time and time again, century over century, that like we come back and we repeat cycles. And do we as a collective ascend if we do learn, how to get out of those patterns?
I love this question. I'm so glad you're asking it. I'm like, we are on the same page.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. And let's see, like, how weird do I get on the answer to this question? The one thing that I believe to be true is that we right now are going through a collective ascension process, a collective awakening, if you will. A lot of people are feeling it in many different forms. And what I call it, some people call it the Ascension Project. That's a whole name for it. I call it a galactic shift. And these are known to happen every few 100 million years on every planet. It's actually like a sort of common occurrence. If every 100 million years was, it's about 150 million. And basically there's a moment in which the planet gets closer to what I would call like our central Godhead, and the whole energy of everything starts to vibrate faster, and you quite literally ascend in your frequency. But the felt experience of that as a human is a lot.
Okay.
Right?
I could, yeah.
To raise your energy, but there's free will in it. So you get to choose whether you do it or not. You don't have to. Just because we're kind of like when you get closer to the sun, you can choose whether you want to stay closer to the sun or you can go inside and cover yourself up, right? And not get a sunburn. But some people are like, okay, I can stay outside for longer. I can take the heat. And in this particular moment, we're experiencing a galactic shift that is raising the total, like the average vibration of the entire planet. And as a collective, we are going through that ascension process, which involves our own free will, our own choice. And then it also involves some people opting out and just saying, I'm not ready for that yet. And there are ways that then, their souls, kind of leave Earth essentially. And they don't make it through that process. But I do personally believe that we're going through that right now.
Is that like a spiritual awakening? And does it vary from person to person?
The felt experience of it. So like, let's say we're talking on the macro level of Earth, right? If the vibration of Earth is at a particular frequency, and then in, let's say 100 years, it's 10 points higher, right? Kind of like the temperature, right? That's a huge shift.
Right.
That's a huge shift. And even if it's just a small number of frequency change for each individual person, that's a massive change in our environment. So every single person is going to have their own individual experience of what that feels like. There's going to be similar sort of what we would call like symptoms, right? So like ascension symptoms. I find that a lot of people get headaches during the process. Usually you're going to go through some kind of spiritual awakening journey that has some similarities with your fellow humans.
Yeah.
But the meaning in your own individual life is going to be directed at you. So it'll be in your own relationships and the things that you personally are working on. And as we know, human beings are a wide and varied, species. So people everywhere are going to have their own stories of what these symptoms bring about. But ultimately, it's the same thing that's happening to everyone, but the stories are playing out in a unique way for every person.
Okay. I'm listening and I'm trying to figure what kind of questions I can ask, because it's a lot. It's packed with so much.
Totally.
Wow.
I know we dove so deep, so fast, which is awesome. I love this. And also take us back to wherever you want to go, because I will be there, and I am actually going to plug my computer in. So just give me 1 second here.
Okay, no problem.
All right, we're back on it.
All right, cool. Let's go back, like what started your spiritual journey. I know. So you served two combats, combat tours, right, in Afghanistan. Like, what moments led you up to where you are? What reshaped your life?
Oh man, yeah. Let's see. The early part of my life was very shaped by, I think, what a lot of people experience, and this is sort of, to tie it back to what we were discussing, is my story is my individual experience of this massive awakening. And it started out as me externalizing who I was. That's really like, that would be the headline for it.
Okay.
I was looking to others for validation of who I am. And I was looking to others for the roadmap as well. how do I understand who I am? How do I understand my purpose, what I'm
Yeah.
here to do? And that started with mostly my father. My father was a very big influence in my life. And I grew up on an organic blueberry farm in Georgia. And both my parents are attorneys. Like, why do attorneys have a farm? I don't know.
Interesting. That's
They're
very
just
interesting.
busy people. And my father recommended and encouraged me to go into the military because he was in the Marine Corps as an attorney during Vietnam. And it changed his life, and it made, his world and his experience in the world better. And so he felt that I should do the same and had encouraged me throughout the years to do that. So I then went to the Naval Academy and became an officer in the Marine Corps. A lot of people don't know that the Naval Academy serves both the Navy and the Marine Corps because the Marine Corps is in the Department of the Navy. Fun fact.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
most people.
and I had family in the Navy, so
Yeah, most people don't know, and I don't think I even knew until I got there. I was like, "Why are you guys together?"
yeah.
But ultimately, that then led me into combat, and I was there in Afghanistan, serving, and I ended up serving 2 tours in my short time in, and because they really wanted to get their money's worth out of me.
That's what happened, right?
I was like, I did serve.
Yes,
So
and thank you.
the process of that then led me to realize that what I thought, the way he had described the military and the way other people had, and the way Hollywood had, was very different
Mm-hmm.
from the reality. And it was sort of this reality check. And I started, and basically all of the reality that I had built up in my mind started to crumble and be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is not real, or this
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
the actual circumstance. So that's when I began to really go through like an awakening process, was the disillusionment.
yeah. Well, he was a lawyer.
Mhm.
So did he necessarily see combat like you did, or yeah, the world
No,
was
that's
just
a
different?
great question. And that is exactly one of the reasons why his reality was very different from mine, because I went into combat while he was he was working in courtrooms. So he was essentially like an attorney, but just in the military.
In the
Yeah.
military.
Doing what he loved.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. Which is
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
So I can see that the Marine Corps, it influenced your perspective on what you talk about now, which is consciousness, healing, and transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in the military and in the Marine Corps, especially, we call ourselves the tip of the spear.
Okay.
The Marines, especially, are usually the first in, and the first out. That's changed a little bit with the irregular warfare of Afghanistan, but we tend to be the risk takers and the
Mm-hmm.
ones who are just crazy enough to be the front line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would say that as I got out and I had this experience of, oh my gosh, like, does God exist? What was that? What was war? What was that about?
Mm-hmm.
War doesn't actually work the way I think. All of these conclusions that were completely sort of different and opposite from what I had at least made to be real in my head before I joined.
Mm-hmm.
It led me on a journey of exploration, and I began to kind of go into the frontier of psychedelics and some of these other alternative techniques for healing. And I don't even think I really understood that I was healing myself at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. I just knew that there was something to be explored and it felt interesting. And also, there were a lot of people around me that were hurting,
Mm-hmm.
especially my sister, who had gone through a very deep process of being diagnosed with borderline. And I was just watching it happen everywhere. And of course, in the
Mm-hmm.
military as well,
Yeah.
significant amounts of trauma in the
Yeah.
military. And that led me on this journey of like, well, what's out there? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
else could we do? And when I started to engage with psychedelics, because I'd moved to the Bay Area, and San Francisco is more friendly with that kind of thing.
Right.
It was more common there, right? I got a very clear message from the plants when I first started working with them that these are not just recreational. These are this work and these kinds of consciousness expanding tools
Mm-hmm.
and beings are here for healing and for growth. And so that's what kind of led me away from just, there's a lot of people who will work recreationally with different plants, but I very quickly, they were kind of directing me to really work with them.
Yeah. So coming out of the Marines, there was some stuff psychological that you had to deal with, and you started dealing with psychedelics. The question I have is, what is the significance of using, like, was it I think I had some research on
Psilocybin.
psilocybin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, what's the significance of using the psilocybin? Because I know, first of all, I know that it's becoming more known
Yeah.
in medicine, and people are using it in some areas,
Mm-hmm.
and it has its healing factors.
Yeah.
So
Let's see. This is a big question because I love the mushrooms so dearly.
okay.
They are really a species of within themselves, right? Fungi itself is a healing species, even not the psychoactive ones, right? We know turkey tail, reishi, chaga, all of these mushrooms across the board are incredibly healing fungi. They're not actually plants. And one thing that I do clarify is that I try to not use the word use, although a lot of people do, and I understand why, because to me these are actual beings that I'm
Mm,
partnering with, that I'm connecting with. I just happen to eat them.
okay.
That's how we work together, right? Is them being ingested in my body. But I don't feel like I use them because they are actually, I mean, if maybe even more accurate is they're using me as a tool
It's a tool, right?
for their expansion. But they, there's a partnership of these medicines, and psilocybin in particular, which is the active ingredient in what we know to be hallucinogenic mushrooms, is, and it's a quote active ingredient, but I do find that, really the entire mushroom itself, it's not just the psilocybin that is active, the whole thing is. I found that they started to open my mind in such a way that my ego and all, when I said I externalized my value and I externalized my self, right?
Mm-hmm.
They started to remind me of how I could start from within
Okay.
and to open my mind to creating a connection with God, source, divine, universe, whatever you want to call it, and get direct connection with that
Mm-hmm.
thing that was also connected to me. And all of that allowed me to quiet, and neurologically, they quiet the default mode network of the brain. That's what they do.
Okay.
And the default mode network of the brain, speaking of those patterns we were talking about before, is you get in your car, you take your left hand, you put your seatbelt across, you plug it in, you put your hands on the wheel, you put your foot on the gas, right? You know exactly, it's total muscle memory. And
Mm-hmm.
you're actually a bit like a zombie when you're doing it. You don't
Yeah.
have to even be conscious, right? As
Yeah.
we know from people who drink and then drive, like you can actually do it.
You can actually do it. Yeah.
Your body can do it because you don't have to be conscious for a lot of things. And a lot of people move through life entirely like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Totally unconscious. And that's because the default mode network of the brain is running the show,
Mm-hmm.
and it's creating these patterns that keep you safe and keep you in your rhythms and your routines. And that allows you to then go through life safely. But it
Okay.
doesn't allow you to go through life creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the medicine does. It helps to activate other parts of the brain and quiet that pattern based part of the brain so that you start to realize that you're in a pattern and to see what other kinds of patterns you want to develop.
It's almost like a wake up call to the humdrum of what we've created our lives to be. And what is the pushback on that, or have you experienced
Yeah.
that?
And do you mean the pushback, like kind of from society at
Yeah,
large or the collective? Yeah.
as a collective. Yeah.
hmm Well, I mean, the amount of bad marketing,
Fair enough.
let's say, right, the propaganda machine that went after psychedelics, especially in the 1960s and 70s, because they were so widely used and there was this boom of them, right? And they started to come into the United States, and then everybody was like, oh, let's try it. And then Timothy Leary, who I love dearly, he was the leader, but
Hmm.
he said, tune in, turn on, drop out. And he encouraged everybody to get out of corporate world, out of the military, get out of the Vietnam War. And so all of these medicines became a threat
Yeah.
to almost like to national security, because they were encouraging people to drop out of the system.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that remains, that some of that energy has remained, which is why a lot of the research that you're seeing now today is on psilocybin, not LSD.
Okay.
Because LSD was what they first studied a lot,
Start.
but a lot
Yeah.
of the research studies were not well done and were not they were certainly not double blind studies. They were kind of loose in their use of these things,
Hmm.
and they weren't as they didn't have as many of the structures that we have today to ensure that the kind of studying that we're doing is as clear and quote objective as
Hmm.
possible.
The next question I have is it safe? And how safe is it?
This, for those who have been to Burning Man, one of the what is it? One of the like mantras there is safety third.
Safety. Oh.
Safety third. Which I always thought was great. I was like, this is awesome. What if we all lived life with safety third?
Yeah, my gosh.
Yeah. So it's a
Such
great
freedom.
question. The short answer is yes. These medicines all across the board are generally safe. And
Yeah.
also, it is your work as someone who may be interested or is engaging in them in to ensure that the setting and the experience is safe for you.
Hmm.
Because as with anything, it can be abused and it
Hmm.
can be overused and it can be overdosed, especially in the wrong setting. So
Right.
what in order to create a safe environment.
What's up, Thriveable Journey listeners and watchers? Look, if you're someone with big dreams of entrepreneurship but need a flexible way to earn income while building your business, let me tell you about the Orions Group. Through our partnership with Arise Virtual Solutions, you can become a customer support professional, aka CSP, and start earning from home on your own terms. Arise offers a streamlined certification process, getting you trained and ready to work with well-known brands all across America. You can set your own hours, choose the clients you want to work with, and create a work-life balance that fits your entrepreneurial goals. The best part, you don't have to choose between your side gig and your business dreams. Being a CSP with the Orions Group means you can bring in extra income while have the flexibility to focus on growing your own venture, much like I did. Whether you're looking to supplement your income or need a bridge while building your empire, this is the opportunity for you. You interested? If so, head over to www.theorionsgroup.com to learn more about becoming a CSP with the Orions Group. Look here. Support your entrepreneurial journey while supporting the Thriveable Journey podcast at the same time. All right, one more time, www.theorionsgroup.com. All right, we're done with the spot. Let's get back to the podcast.
We talk about three things: set, setting, and dosage. Set is mindset. So when you step into any kind of altered state of consciousness, remind yourself you're going out of your default mode network, which means you're going out of the safe place in your
Right.
brain. Yeah?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to the unsafe places.
Yeah.
So you want to have an intention and a purpose for your session, and ideally a guide that is there to bring you back to your purpose, especially when you go to some of those quote unsafe places, those dark, shadowy places in the brain and in the
Mhm.
body that are creating some of your feelings of unsafety in life in general.
Mhm.
So mindset is first. Setting is the environment. and you
Mm-hmm.
want the environment to be a place that is safe and you
Yes.
feel safe. So it could be your home. Sometimes homes have a lot in them. So you might want a different place that has fewer emotions attached to it. But I find that anything that is nestled in nature
Mm-hmm.
is a really powerful and safe place to be,
Mm-hmm.
often closer to humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
urban areas tends to feel a little more unsafe,
Okay.
because nature is generally safe, although of course we know, disasters and things do happen. So, and then the third thing is an environment. I would say guide. If you have a guide with you, is
Yeah.
contributing to the setting, right? To
Yeah.
make sure you have a person or a trip sitter, someone with you who you feel
Mm-hmm.
safe with and who can then, witness you and watch you and be with you in that
Yeah.
journey. And the final one is dosage.
Mm-hmm.
And dosage is always a little tricky because it depends on the type of medicine. Every medicine is measured differently. With psilocybin, it also depends on the strain of the medicine. So the strain of the mushroom, because there's all different strains of psychoactive mushrooms that contain psilocybin, and an experience with, for example, I'm trying to think, like Aztec god mushrooms versus golden teachers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is going to be a wildly different experience, and you
Yeah.
are very likely going to want a different dosage for those. And it depends on your gender, your weight, your what you've eaten that day, all of that. Yeah.
And is this kind of stuff that you do in your retreat, right?
We do. Yes. We have an entire process that helps people prepare and then integrate. And that's one of in terms of the environment, we believe in a container, like
Mm-hmm.
a really strong. So when you ask the question, is it safe? We help to create the safety for
Okay.
you to then go
That's good.
into places that might feel unsafe, right? There might be
Mm-hmm.
moments where you're like, oh, I'm facing my father wound, right? That could feel really unsafe for a period of time, but the container around you, and you know that you're being held. The container around you
Mm-hmm.
is solid.
Yeah.
And so we build this into our metamorphosis method, which is preparation, experience, and integration. And then there's some deeper concepts in there, but that's our general method, mainly because all of the founders, all of us at Metamorphosis, have experienced unsafe containers in the past. And
Yeah.
we felt what it felt like, and it didn't feel great. It
It
was
doesn't feel
like,
great.
we're
Yeah.
highly sensitive, right?
Well, especially in that state. And I think one of the things that I'm learning, well, I know of, but I'm practicing more, is my state of being.
Hmm.
And when you're in that state of being, um, do you find where people start to connect more to their purpose and heal more because of what they're experiencing, where they are?
Absolutely. Yes, it is one of the most profound things to witness. Um, People getting out of that default mode network,
Hmm.
because then they're accessing these other creative parts of the brain. And I'm only speaking about the brain right now. If we then move into the energy field and the places slightly outside of your body that start to open up and
Hmm.
you start to access more of yourself.
Hmm.
And yourself, capital S, extends all the way out to your fingertips, if not beyond.
Okay.
That's all you, right?
Hmm.
That's your energy field. And your
Hmm.
energy field is you, and it dissolves into the oneness that's around us.
What
So
some people
when
call
you,
this personal space.
yeah, exactly. This is my personal space boundaries. We talk about that too. And people can heal so much faster because they get out of their own way. And often there's limiting beliefs that are stuck in the pattern. And basically the serotonin is bringing the neurons on the same highways over and over and over again. So it literally is like banging your head against a wall when you're trying to solve a problem, right? You're
Mm.
like, why can't I get out of this? Well, it's because you actually need to expand beyond and take the side road. Your your neurons need to connect to different parts of the brain.
Mhm.
And then you also need to open your mind to the possibility that you can also heal things within your energetic layer. And most of our health and wellness systems don't acknowledge an energy body. So that means that you're trying to heal something on the physical layer when in fact you could heal it so much faster in the energy field. Yeah.
So there's a distinction then, is what I'm hearing. There's a distinction with the mental space, the energetic space, and the physical space.
Wonderful. I love this. Thank you for that segue. At Metamorphosis, part of our method is speaking about healing on all 4 layers. And we call those layers the body, the heart, emotional layer, the mind, mental layer, and then the spirit and energetic layer.
Nice. Okay.
And one of the things that we don't do in our healthcare world is we don't acknowledge most of those. Or if we do, they're acknowledged and they're separated. So you have like one person that's working on the physical layer, you have another person, you have a therapist that's working on the emotional layer. And then maybe you have an energy healer because you're a little bit more alternative. And so you're working on that layer. But most of and mentally, you may be working on mindfulness, you may be meditating. But if you put them all together and you work on all 4 of them at the same time, you can fully complete karmic blocks and loops, period. And you can do it quite quickly. Yeah. Which is magical. So that's what we really specialize in, is working on all 4 layers at the same time. And that's what's so powerful about plant medicine, is it is a full 4-layer experience. It's working on the physical layer, the emotional layer, the mental layer, and the energetic layer, all at the same time.
Nice. I have like 25 questions trying to come up my head at one time right now.
I understand. I know this problem.
Oh my gosh. Well, can you share a story where you had somebody going through a healing that they went through something really crazy or deep or dark, and they used your method and went to your retreat and came out just with purpose?
Yes. Yes, I absolutely can. Yeah, we had one woman who has literally been to every single one of our offerings. She's done it all. And she kept coming back. And she came in with what I would call severe anxiety. She came in to our container, to our Cracking the Chrysalis container. And that one is designed for leaders and visionaries. And we work both with psilocybin as well as some heart medicines that are to expand and open the heart. And she was, not only did she feel completely uncomfortable in her own skin, she had, eating challenges. She had deep trauma wounds with her family system. But she just had a very deep sense of unworthiness within herself.
Yeah.
And through the process of going to, actually, you know what? She came in through our women's retreat. That was the first one she came to. It's like, she's done so many of them, I forget. She went to our women's retreat and then through the leadership container. And during that process, she basically went from corporate America, living in San Francisco, working aggressively, so much that she was overworking herself, autoimmune diseases. And by the end of her journey, which was about 1.5 to 2 years with us, and also went through our Powerful Purpose program, she discovered her purpose as a sound healer, completely left the corporate industry, and is now like a highly successful sound healer and is channeling frequencies through her sound bowls and serving people who have cancer and working in and serving festivals. And like, it's incredible to see her transformation. She's like a totally different person than who walked in our door. And to think that if you had seen her before, her kind of like buttoned up, corporate America, everything's great, we're fine energy, to the heart-centered healer that she now is, it almost seems like 2 different people. But that was over the course of about 2 years. And she's a whole different person. And all of her chronic conditions have either reduced or completely gone away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put this, but it's just like identity probably has something to do with that, like who she thought she was at one point, and then she went through this transformation in the 2 years, and that old identity didn't keep her in that space anymore, and she found her purpose. And I was in my mind, I was trying to say something a little deeper, but this is the way it came out.
No, I think that that's exactly right, though. Identity, much like my own journey, when we externalize our view of who we are, which is what she was doing before and trying to follow in the footsteps of her family and the people who surrounded her when she was growing up,
Mhm,
it was quite literally making her sick. I
mhm,
mean, she'd be messaging me in some of our programs, and she'd be like, I have to go to the hospital because my stomach is in so much pain right now. And of course,
mhm.
I often say to our clients, it does get worse before it gets better. So like, as we're going through this process, there's a cleaning out, there's a shedding process that happens. So you got to be willing to go into the fire to come out on the other side.
Yeah,
But I'm just realizing also she's a master coach now. So but now she has full agency over her physical body. And that's all because what she is doing is in alignment with and
mhm.
authentic with who she actually is.
That's beautiful. And when you said that, as you were sharing that, now I'm thinking about where we are in February 6th, 2025, as a nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
No
how
kidding.
how do you reach a larger group of people
Mhm.
with high, trying to become get into a higher state of being? I was just we did a podcast. Was it maybe yesterday? I think it was, and we were talking about just critical thinking.
Mhm.
Um, and but I know that this can, critical thinking with what you going on with, the psychedelic healing and
Mhm.
everything, that it can work, together.
Yeah.
Um, how do you reach a group of people or to just really start to help them dig into who they're being so they can stop being in that loop, that pattern, and then, ascend?
Mhm. Well, we got our work cut out for us, don't we? Judging by the current state of affairs,
Yeah.
the good news is I will never be bored in this lifetime, ever,
Keeps you
because
busy.
with this skill set, I'm gonna be working forever.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, this sort of goes into strategy and even prophecy. One of the things that I've come to realize is I am not alone in this process. I'm not the only one that's out there helping people wake up
Yeah.
and remember. So I have to trust, and I get to trust that I have a whole soul family that's out there
Mhm.
of light beings who are doing similar work in the world. And so that's one way that we access. But I would say that when I first started getting out of the corporate world and having my own kind of disillusionment and leaving that matrix reality,
Mhm.
I thought I had to save everything and I had to save everyone. And I was like, oh man, this feels huge. I'm going
Mhm.
to have to like do 100 million ceremonies.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, you feel that burden for a moment.
Right. Oh man. And I finally realized that actually, when I touch someone and they wake up, then there's another person that they touch,
Mhm.
and their awakening and their opening touches X number of people. And then it goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so I would say, go exactly to the people who you are called to connect with, to talk
Yeah.
to help. Do only your little corner. And also, the more you speak and the clearer your voice is in the world, the more people are going to want to listen.
Yeah.
And you will touch actually millions of lives just by working with, let's say, 1,000
Yeah.
or a couple thousand over your lifetime,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You will.
The visual that was in my head is like circles. Like the first circle, like your family or whatever. The next circle, your community, and so forth and so on,
I
organization and
love
things
that.
like that. That's
Yes.
what played in my mind.
Yes, and I see that a lot. I see that sort of spherical energy of like a sphere, and I'm sort of at the core, and usually like with another person and in partnership, and we're at the core, and then we have a tighter circle right around us, and then a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one, and it's like layers of the earth, right? It's like
Hmm.
you are in one of those layers, and you could be the core of your own.
Hmm.
And the brighter you shine within yourself, the people will come, right? The people that
Yeah,
need to be changed and are drawn to your frequency will come to you. Yeah.
yeah. That's the exact word I was going to use is they're going to be drawn to you, and vice versa. So, I love that.
Mm.
I love that. Just be you,
Mm-hmm.
and all that
Yep.
stuff will
And it will come.
it will
Yeah.
come.
I mean, it's
Um,
like, Noah, build it and they will come. And I truly believe I'm like, okay, I'm building. Like, okay, what's next?
yeah,
And I'm just trusting that people will walk through the door and want what we've got to offer.
you have something great to offer from. I mean, I know one of my dreams is to
Mm.
soon finally have an actual studio, and actually have people in the studio so we can have a one-on-one. So that's what we're working towards, and hopefully that will come, and we're working towards it. And I would definitely have to have you come through and be
Yeah.
a one-on-one like that for sure, because I love what you're sharing. But what I wanted to there's the word. I wanted to can you share some insights from what is it?
Mm.
Entheo generated,
Mhm.
and what does that mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, let's start with it. What does that mean?
When I get super big, my manifestation is to make the word entheogen a thing.
Okay.
So I love it because psychedelics is a great word, but it really references the psyche.
Okay.
Psychedelics is speaking to the expansion of the psyche. That's the etymology. But entheogen means entheogen, and it means the God within,
Mhm.
generated by the God within. Yeah. And then I made up the word entheogenerated. And
Okay.
that was my own creation. But entheogen is another name for psychedelics.
Okay.
And I personally believe it's a more accurate word because it describes the spiritual element of awakening the God within you.
Within.
Hmm. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how do you define embodiment?
Yeah. I can't wait to come back and be in your studio because I just want you to keep asking me questions forever. Um, I'm like, is this recorded? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Um, the definition of embodiment is really to bring a thing, whatever it is, right, into the physical body so that it is so integrated within you that there no longer feels like a separation. Yeah, that it is one with your physical being. And one of the reasons we use embodied in House of Embodied Metamorphosis, and I consider myself an embodied consciousness guide, is because I believe that the process of embodying your spirit is that journey of bringing the spirit and the soul actually lives around the body in the energetic layer, kind of looks like a human shape, but it is to fit it. It's a lot of us are walking around with like one leg out of our jeans.
Mhm.
You
Mhm. I caught that
got that?
visual. I caught that. Yeah,
Yes.
got you.
And we're like dragging a pant leg around with us, right? Of this soul that we're not fully embodying. It doesn't really fit. I mean, it actually does fit, but we are not, but we haven't put it on the proper way. And
Yeah.
so it's causing us to stutter step and to not be fully connected to our power. And I often say it's like, if you've seen Iron Man, it's
Mhm.
like putting the Iron Man suit on, but then you don't have the helmet on. Or you put your arms halfway down into the sleeves and you can't actually use the full power
Yeah.
of the Iron Man suit until you put the entire thing on and you fit it exactly to your body.
Yeah.
That is embodiment. Because once you embody the fullness of your soul around you and within you, and you anchor it in, it becomes you and you become it.
It becomes you become it. One more question. I have 1,000, but I know you have a baby, so let's keep it here.
Keep going. Grandpa is loving
Thanks,
time
Grandpa.
with baby right now.
One of the things I'm starting to work on is breath work. Does breath work play into what we're talking about now? And because I know I'm just new to it, and I do the breath work, and it really helps me start my day. I have a little thing that I do in the morning after I run, and breath work is a part of it. And it puts me on a whole different level, like mentally. And I just try to carry that with me throughout the day. Does in your meditation and things like that, what you do on your retreats, is breath work something that is beneficial? And what practices can people do right now?
I think this is a great question to ask after the embodiment question, because the question is like, I gave you a sort of esoteric answer. This is what it looks like and feels like, but what is the actual felt experience of embodiment in our world and in our life, right? And I think breath work breath is the connection to the divine in such a powerful way. So the answer is yes.
Wow.
We use it.
That just hit me.
It is the key to the divine. And it is, there's so much, especially in Hindu beliefs, around the power of the breath, that we are able to interact with the divine energy around us, the oneness around us through our breath. So I'm an incredibly fierce believer in using the power of the breath to embody your own godliness, and also to just quite simply clear your mind, achieve altered states of consciousness, to connect more to your own body and to feel more parts of yourself. And the cool thing about breath work is it's so varied. It's kind of like, I just had this funny analogy. It's like eggs.
Okay.
You can do everything with eggs.
Oh yeah.
You can make a meringue with eggs. Yeah. Wild. You can, you can make like custard. You can make an actual egg and make it scrambled. It's such a varied tool for then consuming. Breathwork is a bit like that.
Okay.
It's the eggs of altered states of consciousness.
You
can take it anywhere, because you could do a soft breath that is quite simple and just focusing on like a gentle exhale. And that alone is going to bring you into a state of calmness and serenity. Or you can go all the way up to the other end and you can do like a breath of fire through Kundalini, and you can have a full on Kundalini awakening, right? And you can also sit in holotropic breath work and go through, or rebirthing breath work, and experience memories of your own birth.
Wow.
Wild. So I would say, I actually originally, I'm glad you asked, because I originally wanted to include breath work as one of the methods in my research.
Okay.
I wanted to discuss altered states of consciousness kind of in general, and speak to breath work, meditation, and working with plant medicines, because all three of those bring you to an altered state of consciousness that gets you out of your default mode network of your brain and helps you connect more with who you are. And I didn't want to write that much. So I stuck with plant medicine.
Let's be honest.
It would have been really long. That would have been a very long thesis. But that's why, but I do deeply believe in the power of the breath. And I would highly encourage you and everyone who's listening to include breath work in your daily practice. Please, 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 because that was the single most effective tool for me in my spiritual awakening.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What's your mission? And let's start with it. What's your mission?
I'll give you both my personal mission and metamorphosis mission. My personal mission came through when I was very young, and it's to create positive social change. That's like my purpose and my mission in this lifetime, to create positive social change. Seems very vague, but it gives me a lot of room
Yeah.
to move and shift in how that changed, right? But what is positive in this time is typically healing, some version of
Mhm.
healing. We need a lot of digging through the shadow and excavating the shadow to bring it into the light. And at Metamorphosis, our mission is to create transformative experiences for 1,000 community members in the next 3 years.
Mm.
And that involves virtual programs, our retreats. We have a festival that we do every year or every 2 years, and we're doing it again this year, called MetaFest. And as well as we even have master classes and kind of one-off experiences that people can come to. But to me right now, the most important thing that people need to learn is how to change.
Mhm.
It's not even what's the change taking you? It doesn't actually matter. What matters
Mhm.
is that you have the ability to change and evolve and flex, because we are living in a time of great expansion,
Yeah.
a very unique and special time. And the more rigid and tight you are in your system, the harder it is for you to ascend in the natural way.
Hmm. That's good. That's
Good
good.
thing it's recorded.
Right. Oh, trust me, when we go through and edit and look at, I mean, I get to see this like 2 or 3 times. And
Oh,
so it's always encouraging when I have these kind of conversations, because I'm highly spiritual. Um, I do practice Buddhism, but I'm highly spiritual. And when I get to hear these conversations, like it's a lot, right? And so I have to go back and I get to go back and listen to what was said and get to share this kind of knowledge and insight with people who are listening. And I think this is just amazing. But I would definitely have to have you back, so we can go to another level for sure. But
yeah.
how do people get in touch with you?
Well, please come check out our website. We are also over the next couple of months, we are putting the call out for our initiation program. This will
Mhm.
be the second cohort, called Emergence, for new facilitators, people who would like to facilitate and serve plant medicines and also your own unique version of medicine. And they can visit our website, which is metamorphosis.ventures. And then you can also find us on Instagram at Embodied Metamorphosis. You can also find me at Susannah Roses on Instagram. I'm there. I'm posting a lot and just generally sending support during this crazy, crazy time in which we are all experiencing some massive shifts in our world.
For sure. Well, I'll definitely be following you. I'll put all that stuff in our description. But to wrap up, what story or what piece of advice or what is something that you want to share with someone listening to the podcast?
Hmm. I've been going through a really big recalibration. I mentioned the initiation of motherhood has been huge for me. I was
Hmm.
not expecting to be a mother. And when I chose to keep this baby and allow him to come all the way through me into the world, it made a lot of people mad. And I had to remind myself over and over and over again, I'm not crazy,
Hmm.
that my intuition, I can trust myself. I can trust myself. I can trust myself. And so, what I say to any of your listeners right now who are interested in this kind of thing, who are feeling the awakening, but you're just not quite sure, maybe you're on a path and you're stutter stepping, you're just a little nervous, right? You are not crazy. You are perfectly sane. You know exactly what you're feeling, and you can trust yourself.
Susannah Rose Stokes, I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate your words, and however you recalibrating, it's beautiful and it's shining, and I do appreciate you. And as we always say around this time, to all you listeners, make thriving your new normal. Susannah, thank you again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you.